Hello, everyone. My name is Gav, of course, and the other week, just last week, I saw the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, and I wanted to kind of make a little review on it because, I mean, I'm a pretty big horror fan, but I also have like I'd say I wouldn't call it an interesting relationship with Five Nights at Freddy's, but I would say like it's probably... I'm not like hugely versed in the lore, but I'm also not completely blind. I played the first two games myself, and I kind of tapped out when they started getting pumped out like every few months. It was crazy how fast they were being made and just came out. But yeah, I played through the first two Five Nights at Freddy's games. I understood the first one much more than I really did the second one. All I know about the second one is that it was a prequel, but the first one, I liked it. It was nice, simple. You were dealing with things that were just in your face, and if you wanted to dig around for more, there was plenty of stuff in the background for you to consume and get a deeper story out of it, and just to have like something dark and sinister underlying the entire game, pretty much. And I really liked that. Like I said, it was nice, it was simple, and it didn't go completely batshit fucking insane with the lore. But yeah, then I heard that this movie was coming out. I remember hearing about it forever ago, that it was being made, and it got kind of stuck in that development hell the same way the Uncharted movie did. And then the Uncharted movie came out, and it was kind of terrible. It didn't really understand why Uncharted worked as a game, and it did not translate its best qualities to the movie. Other than like just taking the Cliff Notes version of Uncharted and slapping it onto a movie and not really understand why it worked one way in the game and not this way in the movie. So I heard this movie was coming out, and as it came out and reviewers got their hands on it first, and a lot of people saw it before I did, because I saw it like a week after it came out. I heard that it was very much a for the fans movie, which is fine, I think, but also it depends on what you mean by for the fans, because if you've been following my channel for a while, forever ago I put out a review for the Resident Evil movie that came out, I think back in 2021. That movie was terrible. It was really bad, and I did not enjoy it at all. I did see an early screening of it, and I was like, oh shit, this is... I think it was like a week early or some shit like that. For some reason my movie theater nearby was just doing that. I don't know, maybe they knew it would only make like $20 at the box office, so they just threw it out to whoever wanted to see it. But yeah, the Resident Evil movie was very much a for the fans kind of project, and I did not like it at all. As a huge Resident Evil fan, that movie felt like it was a bunch of people that Googled Resident Evil, tried to recreate screenshots that they saw on Google Images, and then jingled a bunch of keys in my face. I will say, this movie is a lot better at being a for the fans movie. It at least tries to play around with the source material in a way where it feels like fans are actually making it, which is pretty nice. Now, some of the things I really liked about the movie was, first off, the animatronics look great. They look uncannily close to how they do in the first Five Nights at Freddy's game, which I think has the best animatronics in the entire series. In the first game, they captured that like perfect in-between point of being really uncanny and creepy, but also something I could actually picture seeing in a pizzeria or something like that, like a Chuck E. Cheese. I could actually picture these things being on stage and doing what they do. They looked really cool, but also like cheap in the best way. Like obviously they're not cheap to make for the movie, but like they look like in the universe they're appropriately like smooth and uncanny almost, if that makes sense. Also, the practical sets are great. In Five Nights at Freddy's, even though you're only seeing the pizzeria from fixed camera angles, it does a really good job at literally making a map of the place so that you can easily picture it as a 3D space. And I think the movie also really helps capture that. You visit the pizzeria enough in the movie, or Mike does, to feel out the space and know exactly where everything is. I think the only places where this doesn't really apply is, I think there's this weird backstage place behind the curtains that, this isn't really a spoiler, it happens in like the first minute of the movie. You see the backstage area for a little bit, and I can't really tell how that fits into the entire building itself. I think if there were different camera angles to show how these places were being entered and how they kind of fit into the rest of the building, it might have helped more. But yeah. Another thing I really liked was Vanessa's acting. I don't know if it's a spoiler that Vanessa's in the game. I don't know anything about her character in the games, but she's in this movie, and I'm pretty sure that would have been in the trailer. But Vanessa, even if like some of the lines that she says are a bit stilted, like they weren't written the best, she delivers it with her all. There are scenes where she's saying what would otherwise be really silly things, but her character, you can see her like throat closing up and her face kind of swelling, and it takes really cheesy, corny lines and actually makes them feel like a human is delivering them, which takes a lot of skill. Also, Matthew Lillard makes a great villain. Alright, I don't know if you've seen Scream. I don't know if the Five Nights at Freddy's crowd has gone out of the way to see Scream. I think the character he plays in Scream is a lot better and it gets a lot more time to shine, because in this movie he only really shows up at the start and then at the very end. I think if he got a lot more time to be characterized somehow, I think that would have really benefited the movie. He clearly loves playing a villain and he has a lot of fun doing it, and even if the writing and some of the scenes surrounding him aren't great, you can tell that he's just having a blast. Last thing I really like was the entire idea behind Mike's story. I really think that the idea is that, this isn't really a big spoiler, you learn about it pretty early on, but his little brother was kidnapped when he was young. And he kind of got into the theory that in life, every single thing you see is stored in your brain somewhere and can be accessed if triggered. So he tries to go to sleep to dream that moment where his brother was kidnapped, just to see if he can find anything at all that could help him maybe find some closure. And I think that's really cool. Like, one, I like that concept in of itself, and two, it also does a really good job at quickly just showing how desperate this character is and how, like, haunted he is by seeing his brother get kidnapped and feeling like it was partially his fault, even though he was told to watch his brother like 5 seconds before he was kidnapped. And then he turned, like, literally his mom says, it's in a dream, so maybe it's just a very condensed version of the events that he saw, but like in the dream his mom is like, can you watch your brother? And he's like, sure. He turns around, his brother's gone, and then like 5 seconds later after looking, he sees the car peeling off with his brother in it. But yeah, overall I really like the idea behind it, at least. Now, I am going to get into some spoilers for this next bit, so if you haven't seen the movie, or if you just don't particularly care about spoilers, I'd skip to the timestamp that I'm putting on screen right now for my final verdict and whatnot. But yeah, so first thing is the things that I didn't really like. So the weird ghost children that show up in the dream whenever Mike starts working at Freddy Fazbear's didn't really feel intimidating to me. It was odd, I think, just they weren't really scary, and I don't know how to explain it. They just didn't really do anything for me. Like, especially with the bleeding eyes bit. Like, there's the scene where one of the kids kind of looks over at Mike in the middle of the dream, and then he kind of like screams or laughs or something. I don't really remember. It's been a while since I've seen the movie, but his eyes start like dripping out black. Like he's bleeding from them, and then his eye turns completely black, and it's supposed to be a creepy moment. But I found it funny because it looked really cheesy. And sometimes the movie is like cheesy or corny in a way where you're clearly laughing with it, but many times you're kind of laughing at it. I don't think it was trying to be this like cheese fest where you're like, it's kind of bumping its elbow into you. You're supposed to be having a funny time watching, like, self-aware. It really does feel like they didn't capitalize on the best parts of this entire series in translating it into a film. I also think that so Mike has an aunt who is trying to get custody of his sister because his dad left. His mom, I think, died? Or something. I'm pretty sure she's dead, but I remember the dad left. The mom is probably dead. And the aunt wants custody of Mike's sister because if she has custody, then the government sends her, I don't know, an $1,000 check every month. Which, for someone who seems as rich as her, doesn't seem like a lot. Like, I get they're playing, like, oh, this character's greedy and doesn't care about the sister, she just wants the money that the government would give her. But, like, I think that money would be so inconsequential that I don't really buy that someone like that would care to put in all this effort just for a McDonald's paycheck added to their monthly balance. I don't know. But yeah, so the aunt wants to sabotage Mike's new workplace so that it makes him look incompetent and that he gets fired or he gets in trouble with the police. And so that custody would automatically be transferred to her instead of Mike. And she hires a group of kids to break into Freddy Fazbear while Mike is off duty. So that immediately, like, kind of made me be like, why? Because they break in when he's off duty. Mike, like, legally would not be in trouble if something happened to his workplace while he was off duty. Like, I'm pretty sure I'd have to watch again, but they either pick the lock or they break it, and either way, that would show enough evidence to show that someone broke in while Mike was off duty. It was out of his control. And then they start getting killed by the animatronics, and they leave a big mess because they were throwing like a bunch of plates and pots and pans and throwing tables around and just making a mess to make the entire place look terrible. They were also trying to steal money, but yeah, they end up getting killed by the animatronics. But like, the only reason Mike ever comes close to being in trouble is because he left his sleeping medication there. And they could maybe assume that he possibly might have forgotten to lock the lock to the gate that was closing off the pizzeria. And it's such like a reach to assume that Mike would get in trouble for that. And he ends up not being in trouble at all, because Vanessa comes over to Mike with the pills and is like, hey, why are these at your workplace? Could have been in big trouble, mister, if they found out you were sleeping on the job. But even then, if you just said, oh, I just take my meds wherever I go, like, I'm pretty sure that would probably be enough to pass in court. But yeah, I don't understand that entire plot of the trying to get Mike in trouble by sabotaging his workplace while he's completely off duty. It was a bit weird and, like, really stilted. Another thing I don't understand is that at the start of the movie, you meet William Afton, and he's the one that ends up giving Mike a job. I don't know if maybe they explained this somewhere in the movie, then I just totally spaced it. But for whatever reason, William Afton is going under a different name when he's hiring Mike. Like he's in disguise or something. That didn't really make sense to me, because the entire point behind William Afton in the later chunk of the plot is that he got away with all the murdering he did. No one ever found the bodies, and he got off scot-free. He was never... The time he was a suspect for was minimum after they searched the place for the missing children at Freddy Fazbear's. They never found the bodies, he never got in trouble. I don't know why William Afton changed his name to like disguise himself at the start of the movie, other than for the audience. And even then, the audience knew that was William Afton because of the trailers and the marketing. Like immediately, all the marketing stuff was like, yep, that's William Afton, Matthew Lillard is William Afton. Try saying that 5 times fast, Jesus. But yeah, no idea why he changed his name. That might be a nitpick, but it was really weird and just kind of made me scratch my head by the end of the movie. I was like thinking like, oh, is there a reason that he's not going by William Afton? Is this like going to be revealed later? But no, they explicitly mentioned later that he got away with everything. He was never arrested, he never served prison time or anything. He was smart, clever, and he changed his name because I guess he was feeling silly that day or something. Also, on that topic, the children never being found because they were stuffed into the suits is a huge stretch. Like, this movie really... It really leans hard into the legality of some of the actions. Like, between Mike's aunt trying to make him look bad to the court, to just everything that happened with Freddy Fazbear's, to Vanessa being involved in the plot, it goes a long way to involve legal stakes. Now, I've watched Better Call Saul, and they do a lot of research on the legality of some stuff. Now, some stuff is obviously dramatized, but as someone who watched Better Call Saul, maybe I'm just conditioned to be like, okay, this is what would and wouldn't work in court, at least a fictional one. Now, they put a lot of stock into that. The idea that the police just couldn't find any evidence. However, the children that William Afton killed were stuffed inside the animatronics, and that's why they haunt them now. I have no idea how the animatronics were somehow the last place investigators searched. That makes no sense to me. They apparently cased the place up and down, all the way around, but Vanessa says that he hid them in the last place they thought to look. Personally, the animatronics that are specifically made to house people inside of them are one of the first places I would look if there were missing children in the Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. Also, they're dead. I don't know if you know, but corpses tend to smell real bad after a while, and I'm assuming that they searched Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria for a decent while, and not once did they maybe smell that the animatronic was like getting a little stanky, and kind of peek inside of it and see a whole ass dead child staring back at you. Like, it really goes out of its way to stress that the legal ramifications of everything going on and how they're both a threat, and also how the terrible things that were done in the story managed to subvert that so that the bad guys didn't get in trouble and get caught immediately because there'd be no movie. But it also makes such leaps in logic to where I'm just like, how the hell did they not know this? It's a lot. I also don't think, personally, that Mike's younger brother needed to be directly involved with William Afton. I don't know if that's a hot take, but it kind of... I don't think that everything needed to be so interconnected that it turns out that William Afton was behind it all. Especially since the ghost of the younger brother doesn't end up being a factor. I thought that was maybe where they were going, but it wasn't. The ghost of the younger brother never shows up. We don't even know if he's dead. We know that William Afton kidnaps and kills children, but if he did kill Mike's younger brother, it happened somewhere else. We don't know exactly how that all went down. I don't think it needed to be involved with William Afton directly, but it was, and it kind of ended up having very little payoff other than trying to give like a personal rivalry between Mike and William that is only present for like the last 10 minutes of the movie. Sorry, I got hiccups while I'm talking. Also, as someone who doesn't know a ton about William Afton and his character and his lore, before he gets inside of the suit, or he is inside of the suit while he's like beating up the Mike, and then Mike's younger sister, I forget her name, manages to tell the ghosts the truth about William Afton being the one that killed them, and then all the ghosts are like, oh shit, alright, this guy ain't shit, alright, let's beat his ass. And then the spring locks in the suit start popping off. And I think that was a pretty cool moment, like the spring suit, because there's a hole in the suit, and then you see the first like 2 or 3 springs like slamming into his rib cage. You see some blood like starting to pool out, and then the rest just start like clipping in. You hear it and you see him like reacting, and he falls to his knees, lifts up his little Springtrap helmet, and then he says, "I always come back," or something like that. Now, I know that might be a lore thing, because I know that William Afton constantly comes back. I've seen out of context that the man has literally gone to hell and then come back to life, or some shit like that. But in the context of this movie, you have to understand that even if this was referencing him basically being so evil that he's immortal, none of that is ever set up in this movie. Never. And it makes no sense. It might have been a cool moment for the people who know all of the lore and hearing him say that on the big screen, but it really didn't make any sense. It'd be like if in the Resident Evil movie, there's like a sudden scene where Nemesis bursts down a wall and then Jill Valentine and him get into a fight. Like, yeah, I understand what this movie would be referencing in this hypothetical scenario, because Jill Valentine and Nemesis fought in RE3. However, in this particular movie, one, this is an entirely different timeline. I don't care about these characters unless if you've given me new reasons to care about them. But also, none of this was set up prior, so again, I don't really care about this. So, yeah. Again, this is a new timeline, this is fresh to us. It doesn't matter if you've set it up this story in the games and in the books, unless if you specifically say, hey, this is a sequel or a prequel to these games and books, you need these to understand this, then like, yeah, then I'll accept it as a continuation. But if not, this is a brand new movie, this doesn't make sense. But, yeah, I as I watched the movie, I kind of got reminded of another movie that I saw a while ago. Like a long while ago. And I'm not sure if everyone here has seen it, so I'll give the rundown on it. But that movie is called Sinister. And when I thought of a Five Nights at Freddy's movie, I kind of thought it would be more like Sinister. To give like the cliff notes of Sinister, basically it is about a guy who moves into a clearly fucked up and haunted house where murders have occurred. And it answers a lot of questions, and it raises a lot of mystery. First off, the question that is raised is, why would a protagonist remain in a house that is clearly haunted to balls? And they end up giving a nice and cool, believable answer that also stirs up drama within the protagonist and his family. And I think that Five Nights at Freddy's would have really benefited if it followed that movie structure more. Because basically, at night, the main character of Sinister kind of goes up to his attic, where he's supposed to be writing his next novel, and instead he starts to investigate the murders that happen in this house, and he slowly uncovers more and more, and he watches these horrific videotapes of the past families that have lived here being murdered in mysterious circumstances. And he digs deeper and deeper into this mystery, and the further he goes, the more depraved it gets. And nighttime is like the haunting stuff. That's where all the creepy shit happens. It's where he's really digging into this big mystery, and it's where he's mostly in danger. Like, the danger doesn't really come until the very end, but you can tell that like he's on some mighty thin ice during night. And then in the daytime, that's when he goes to safely poke around different parts of the house. It's where he talks with his family, character development, all that stuff. I think Five Nights at Freddy's as a movie would have benefited if it followed more along that. Especially if maybe every day and night were kind of split up into chapters, like night 1, night 2, night 3, night 4, night 5. I counted. The movie does take place over the course of 5 nights, but I do think that it would have been cooler and a lot more poignant if we could pinpoint when these nights were and kind of split off the story into different chapters and feel it becoming more dangerous for our protagonist. I wish that it went more into that direction, but oh man, it's a really missed opportunity. I'd have to like brainstorm an entire series of ideas, but if in my head I'm thinking a cool Five Nights at Freddy's adaptation that follows more along those lines structurally would have been maybe Mike's brother went missing at Freddy Fazbear's a while ago, and then one day he finds out that there is a security guard opening. And he goes there every night to work the night shift, and he kind of pokes around to maybe see if there's evidence of maybe what happened to his brother. And then every night he delves further and further, and things get more dangerous, and then during the day he talks with his family about it. Maybe some of them disapprove, maybe some of them wants to help them. Maybe someone like William Afton is trying to get this motherfucker killed. But yeah, I really do think that the movie would have benefited from something like that. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Five Nights at Freddy's, the movie. I think overall but between like all the good and all the bad, I would have to give this movie a 5 out of 10. Which for me is average, like literally middle of the road. If 10 is masterpiece, 1 is garbage, 5 is literally just the average movie. I probably won't think a whole ton about it again, other than maybe the animatronics. But other than that, I do think that there are so many shortcomings in the writing and the story that it really hampers the movie in a way where I think it could have shined otherwise. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys for listening to me ramble about this movie, and I'll catch you guys another time. I plan on making more audio soon, now that I finished the audiobook that I was working on, Bloodbound Reawakening. So yeah, do check that out. It's coming out soon, and yeah, that's about it. See you guys later. Peace.